In the heart of Assisi, as the sun rose over ancient stones, a young man dreamed of glory and greatness.
He was the son of a wealth merchant Peen, admired by all, destined for comfort and fame.
But behind his smile lived a silence, a question without words. He longed for battles and songs of honor, dreaming of a name that history would remember. But in war, he found not glory, only pain and the hollow sound of fear.
In the cold of captivity, his soul whispered a question. Was this all he was meant to be?
And then, through fever and silence, he heard a voice not of this world. "Francesco, serve me."
When he returned, his friends saw a stranger, but heaven saw a soul reborn.
He found a forgotten chapel, broken, silent, and waiting for a soul to listen.
And in the silence, he heard not stone crumbling, but heaven speaking. "Francesco, rebuild my church." The words did not echo in his ears, but in his heart.
With a whisper and a tear, he answered, "Yes, Lord."
He worked as if each stone were a prayer placed by hand.
Love for God now set him against the man who had given him everything.
He was brought before the church to answer throne. But truth cannot be imprisoned.
And so he became the poorest of men, and richer than he had ever been.
With nothing but faith and the breath of the wind, he walked into the embrace of freedom.
He played not for riches or glory, but for the courage to love, as Christ loves.
Then came the test, to embrace what once repelled him. In that embrace, heaven touched earth felling, and fear became love.
He found joy not in command, but in serving the smallest of hearts.
He rebuilt what was broken Wayne, stone by stone, heart by heart. And others came soon, drawn not by power, but by peace.
And under the quiet moon, a movement of love began to breathe.
Word spread through Assisi of a man who carried not gold, but compassion.
He fed bodies and souls alike, tasting joy in every act of mercy.
They called themselves brothers, bound not by blood, but by purpose.
He spoke to every creature as if to kin, and heaven listened in silence.
Soon, hearts long hardened began to soften in team, not by force, but by love.
And there, in the quiet of prayer, the seed of a new order was planted.
To seek blessing, they journeyed to Rome profluent, not for glory, but for grace. And before the mighty, he stood as nothing después, and yet heaven itself smiled upon him. The church blessed his mission Gris, a poor man sent to remind the world of love.
He returned not as a hero, but as a servant of peace.
With words simple as bread, he fed hungry souls with hope.
To him, every creature was a brother, every wound a chance to love. His example spread like light and said, from one heart to another, from one village to many. In silence, he spoke to God as to a friend lay, no titles, no fear.
His joy was not in having, but in sharing, the wealth of a grateful heart.
And the world seemed to breathe easier around him, as if nature itself remembered its maker.
In his final years, he sought solitude on the mountain, to speak with God alone.
He fasted, he wept, he listened, until silence itself spoke back.
And one night, a light descended, saying, a fire that
Wounds appeared where love had entered, signs not of suffering, but of union.
He returned home bearing both pain and peace, taksur, a living testimony of divine love.
Welcome, Sister Death. And as the bells rang, a soul took flight, from earthly dust to eternal light. And his light remains in every heart that chooses simplicity, in every soul that learns to love.
When the poor man of Assisi departed, the city itself seemed to hold its breath.
They followed him not with sorrow, but with song and
And soon, miracles whispered through Assisi, signs of mercy still at work.
From dust and devotion, a sanctuary rose, a house for the poor man's spirit.
His story was painted not in ink, but in light, echoing through walls of stone. Across generations, they came beams, not to see a monument, but to touch a miracle.
And his brothers still walk among us, Wraithing, living his gospel through humble deeds.
And so, the light of Francesco still burns, Lev. Not in marble.
From one humble life, a fire of faith began to travel beyond borders and centuries.
Franciscan hearts carried his light to islands and kingdoms far beyond the horizon.
Through heat and hunger, they walked with peace as their only weapon.
In cold and darkness, they became warmth, living echoes of his compassion. Through ink and prayer, his message found new voices, peace and goodness for all.
Even in the noise of modern streets, his spirit walks, silent, steady, kind. Centuries have passed, yet the stones still sing prose of poverty, peace, and boundless joy.
And so, his prayer remains, Pesmi, that every heart may become a living sanctuary of love.
Centuries later, the words of Saint Francis of Assisi still whisper through time, praising every part of creation as kin.
In an age of concrete and steel, the spirit of Saint Francis of Assisi calls humanity back to harmony with the earth.
Through every act of kindness, Saint Francis of Assisi lives again quoted, in those who choose compassion over comfort.
And in the city that bears his name, people of every faith gather, still answering the call of Saint Francis of...
And as the sun rises again over Assisi, the soul of Saint Francis...
His prayer became the heartbeat of generations' feasts, the humble words of Saint Francis of Assisi.
And his garden grew, not of stone or wealth, but of souls reborn through mercy and peace.
And as the light returns each morning to Assisi,